Okay, good morning. This is the September 25th meeting of the Economic Vitality Committee. We are convening here in the select board room and online. So the first order of business is the approval of minutes. Greg, you had sent me a note. Did you want to add something to the minutes?
I leave it up to the group, but I didn't know the minutes, the way they were written, did not speak to the fact that Massachusetts is one of the very few states that gets their rulings from the EPA versus the state ruling the effluent that goes into the river and whatever from the. I thought that was a pretty important distinction and was wondering what others thought, mentioning it in the minutes, because it doesn't say there is only a few states that.
I agree. It was an interesting distinction for me.
Yeah, it was news to me and I thought, wow, you know.
Well, why don't you move to amend the minutes to?
Well, did anyone else feel that, did you listen and feel that way? I'm just curious.
I wasn't there and.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big part of our discussion. I'm happy to include that we discussed that element of it. The only thing I was concerned about is I think mentioning it is fine. I still feel like I would want to go back and like kind of verify that section that he was talking about to make sure that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the policy is on that kind of thing, but I did feel like there's a lot of detail there that I always get worried of. There's like, he wants to give the report of that kind of detail, so if anything, I feel like we maybe want to slash more of it.
And I do know what's in our element of when you have a state that, so like a state like California, as we talked about in that meeting, chooses to view EPA sort of through its own lens. And what that allows it to do is to go above and beyond what the EPA does. The EPA is setting the baseline threshold, and it sounds like, from what I can understand, Massachusetts is saying, we will always make sure we are applicable to the baseline that has been set, but we will use other levers to decide if we don't want to go above and beyond that.
The inference I got from Alan, however, was that if other states, if you can handle it locally, meaning with the state, and you might get more understanding from the state and the EPA. That's the way I heard it.
Yeah, for me, like not understanding a lot of this, I found that a really interesting distinction where Concord, because we get questions all the time. So I think it's nice to be able to say,
Yeah.
Concord has done what it can do, but it's governed by.
I think that's like the right thing to go.
Concord has done everything within its jurisdiction, but we are also guided by whatever regulations are above municipal level.
Yeah. But I think the point that you're getting to, Greg, is that in this case of Massachusetts and one other state, which I forget which one it was, the EPA is the one interpreting the rules. In other places in the country, the state gets to interpret EPA rules.
Correct.
But no, that's a little bit different, because the same way it's like food code gets in Massachusetts, it's interpreted by each individual municipality, which is unique in the country as well. Usually it's on a county-wide level. So it's about who gets to interpret the rules, and the EPA is claiming their role is in both making the rules and interpreting the rules. In other places, the state gets to interpret the rules.
Right, but in interpreting the rules, it's only that they can go above and beyond what is established for EPA, for water regulation.
No, the key thing was about interpreting just the volume of the water, so it had to do with how it's tested. So right now, Concord, the volume that gets released from the wastewater treatment actually has got a higher standard and level of pollutants within it. But the EPA is saying that volume of water, they're considering that fluid itself, no matter how clean it is a pollutant in and of itself. And in other states, they are just testing the particular material within the fluid. And that's the key distinction, that basically that's what's limiting our capacity.
And the only
We
reason it's
verify
important.
that, we know that's actually the case in terms of the interpretation.
I think,
Well, that's what's limiting us right now, that the Concord, at least is my, from Concord, is that Concord has really maximized the capacity of their wastewater treatment to make it as pure as possible. And basically, he is like, we don't care how pure you make it. We're saying any drop of water coming out of that is
Counts.
considered pollutant.
Okay, here's what I suggest. Um, Since you were chair, will you get to Alan,
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
see
Get a
if we
sentence.
can develop
Yeah.
a sentence or two that reflects these concerns? Let's postpone approving the minutes. Next meeting, we'll have your
Yeah.
input. Is that okay?
Yeah.
it's totally fine, and not to whip the horse anymore, but I think if we were going to advise the select board or somebody as to what direction to move in, it would be wise to have that defined, so we can say, hey, select board should be talking to the
Yeah.
EPA, select board should be talking to the state. I mean,
Got it?
Yeah.
No,
that's the reason
I
I'm,
totally agree.
think it's an
Yeah.
important point, so let's.
Yeah, so
let's
I'll go
get
to
some
Alan with the language that.
Well, it reflects it, and then let's get back here, okay? All right, thanks, thanks very much.
Just one question.
Yeah, hi, Mark, yes, please shoot.
Good morning. So, Greg, I think the only, for me, the most interesting part of this, or an interesting part would be if we had the state interpret these regulations, what would be our recommendation? What would be the difference, Greg? Are we talking 5%, 10%, 20%? If our capacity is 1.5 million, is it now 2.5? What magnitude are we talking about if we think the state will be, I'm not sure what the right word is, but will allow more capacity?
Yeah, and so I think I would just, the tagline, if I get it, Mark, is whatever we get. The punchline is, and how would that affect Concord's
Capacity.
capacity?
Right, so
Right.
it's sort of a, don't ask a question unless you know the answer type of thing. Let's at least propose an answer and then propose a question that leads to that answer, and hopefully that answer helps us as far as sewer capacity.
yeah, I don't think Alan talked about that at all, to my, what the benefit would have been.
No, we didn't get that, no.
So it shouldn't, that need not be in the
Yeah,
minute.
I don't, that way, yeah, it wasn't part of the primary discussion, we're not just.
I can still bring it back in there as an update, put it in our board.
Okay, thank you very much. Mark, you're up. We're welcoming Mark Bayless, who was, are you the chair of the committee?
right now, yes.
Of the Transportation Advisory Committee, and he's going to make a presentation for us, and then we'll have a discussion. So welcome.
Thank you.
You should get Katie as well. Katie joined.
Oh, hi, Katie.
Good morning. Sorry, I had to join virtually this morning, but nice to be here.
I'm glad you're here.
We'll make it slideshow.
Yeah.
So go about 3/4 of the way over the top tab, or further over. Good.
That's slideshow, thank you. Okay. Get rid of this. Getting there. All right, so, my name is Mark Bayless, right now I'm the chair of the Transportation Advisory Committee. And I'm here to kind of introduce a document, which is a transportation and mobility vision that PAC put together. And also to talk about one other document. I'll also talk a little bit about why we put this together, what the purpose was. So the document, which I think a link to it has been distributed to people, starts out stating a goal, safe and efficient movement of people, and some guiding principles.
safe mobility for all residents and visitors, environmental sustainability, fiscal sustainability, respect for historic character, equity, and support economic vitality. Trying to get these things kind of clearly on the table so people can, give us input and help prioritize and fine-tune things. And then in terms of environmental sustainability, a little more precise definition to reduce greenhouse gases and protect natural environment, fiscal sustainability, that the capital and operating expenses are consistent with town goals, and respect the historic character of the town, including things like establishing guidelines for roadways and sidewalks in historically sensitive areas. The TAG is a committee of the town manager. Members are appointed by the town manager and, approved by the select board, but appointed by the town manager. And it's charged to advise the town manager and select board on a lot of different things, a lot of different aspects of transportation in the town, as well as learning from what other communities are doing in the region and outside the region, and serving as I think a conduit for public input or public education on these issues. So it's a small group of people kind of trying to spend time collecting and sorting information. Last fall, the town started a contract with the consulting firm Stantec and on a comprehensive transportation and mobility study. And there was a public workshop on October 17th last year. There was a survey. This is a contract for $100,000 administered, of course, by staff, not by TAC, but TAC has been very involved trying to shift the focus of the consulting work more towards things that facilitate actual actions and implementation rather than generating a 200, 300-page report. It would be nice if we had this, wouldn't be nice if we had that. So right now, $30,000 has been spent, and a lot of what we've learned is things that we kind of knew already from the long-range plan and have been hearing from people. So some of the public feedback from the survey and the public outreach was, we need public transit in Concord. We need to safely connect the two town centers. Route 2 crossings are dangerous for all modes. Route 2 rotary operation and safety is a common concern. Cycling safety needs improvement. Pedestrian safety needs improvement, and more frequent and accessible, let's say in terms of a platform with Dollar Depot, MBTA commuter rail service would be a great benefit. This builds on, this efforts builds on previous efforts of the 2018 Envision Concord long-range master plan document, which has like any other community's master plan, emphasizes things including economic development and circulation and transportation. And if you search the 273-page document, transportation is mentioned more than 200 times, 274 times, some of them in headings and things like that. So it validates and confirms the idea it's important for a lot of things. In the economic vitality section of that document, there are sections like land use policies, transportation and infrastructure investments, historic preservation, et cetera, contribute to quality and vitality of village centers as both economic and social hubs. Lack of transportation service at extended hours and to communities where existing and potential workers live is an impediment to recruiting workers. And there's a goal of expressed in the Envision Concord to outline development guidelines for infill development tied to transportation management strategies for improved shared transportation access. Now, are you picking up that little? There's a little thing covering something on my screen, but not anybody else. Envision Concord states this plan is meant to be aspirational. It's not been constrained by realities of budgets or finances, and the critical task of analyzing the economics of these recommendations has been left to committees and departments that will take the lead on implementation. So obviously, if you want to get anything out of this in practical, in the real world, committees and departments have to analyze the economics and take the lead on implementation. We need to figure out what things cost, what are best options, and how to fund them. So continuing back with tax vision document, in no particular order, we have listed a number of action items to kind of aid staff and other committees in the town in trying to focus more towards the economic analysis and implementation. So road and sidewalk surface quality, define and attain the desired level of quality, establish goals and standards for pedestrian mobility, do the same for bicycles on the roads. Something that is going to take its own major work at some point is really looking comprehensively at a vision for parking in the town, because it interacts with so many different things, and might as well start that discussion that may involve some other kind of consulting contract. Specify a level of public transit service and an operational model for that, or models. Establish standards and road designs for safe and expeditious movement of motor vehicles, consistent with safe passage for other ways of people moving around, because there are a lot of cars, and there's probably going to be a lot of cars on the road for a long time. And determine the feasibility of some kind of common delivery service for businesses. You know, the florists deliver, one of the pharmacies delivers, but there may be some commonalities that might help. I'm going to focus on two of the actions which are kind of, one of them is, this one is in sort of a critical path right now, road and sidewalk surface quality, because the town manager is working to, along with Public Works and finance director, et cetera, to move towards a borrowing or bonding next town meeting to pull us out of a kind of a downward spiral due to the fact that for decades, the road infrastructure has been, maintenance has been underfunded. And one of the key things, like from the Department of Public Works in this picture, is that if you, think about it like maintaining the roof on your house, maintaining the roof, it protects everything underneath. And if on the road, you can kind of protect the surface and do economical surface treatment and maintenance, and not start to get into breaking down of the road and potholes and even deeper damage, you extend the life of that capital asset. We have 108 miles of roads. That's quite a bit of capital asset that serves everybody in the town. So it's prudent to borrow to maintain that and get out of the extreme rebuild where there's a tremendous amount of public inconvenience when you tear up roads. I mean, we have, I guess, probably due to some particular cyclical funding and preparation for the 250, a lot of work going on right now, but there are a lot of other roads in town to be taken care of. Public Works, this gets into like modeling and management of this asset. And Public Works has come up with certain projections, basically saying that, if you zero budget in a few, in 4 years, you're going to be $65 million in the hole in terms of getting back to where you were. And the historical budget is that green line, which was $2 million a year when Public Works was asking for $4 million. And even the $4 million per year, depending how you use it, will get you moving better or keeping the same. So there's the red and the green lines are the same $2 million per year, but the red one is less efficient. It's basically saying fix the broken stuff, but don't try to preserve the good stuff. So there's kind of a balancing that needs to be worked out, modeling, for the best efficiency. Pavement management, according to CPW, provides multiple benefits. And it also gets involved with, when you're maintaining or rebuilding things, you can improve intersection alignments and drainage and ADA compliance and et cetera. So I'm gonna zip through the other sections, but if you look at the document, there are some subheading items for pedestrian mobility, for bicycles, for parking strategy, which is kind of a big, probably a big study of its own. There's one about road standards and delivery service. But going back to the public transit, which is the second thing I want to talk about, because there's a second document that TAC is has put out, specify a level of public transit service and an operational model for that serves people who are not well served and reduces CO2 emissions. So this is going to require work by staff, maybe by the current consultant or other consulting, and the TAC to look at what other communities are doing, develop a potential plan for Concord, identify opportunities and what it takes to get something done. So the second document is just some thoughts on public transit, and it lists many benefits, and there are probably more benefits, but happened to be yesterday at a talk about movie showing at the main library with Peter Alden about shorebirds, and he was recalling out of the blue at the end of it, he said, I wish we had public transit in town. I remember my mother going on the bus between the town centers to go to work. And there was a bus that ran from Maynard all the way to Arlington Heights in Arlington, where you could get on the trolley there. So it has a lot of benefits, but there are many different models for this. There are fixed route approaches, there are door-to-door service, there are kind of things you reserve. It interacts with a lot of things. Connecting the town centers with something regular is interesting. The MBTA depots, the Best Western location, the MCI development region, and West Concord there. On door-to-door transit service. One more thing about the fixed routes. There are certain models where people are doing this where there's no fee, and you don't have to collect money, you don't have to deal with that. Can be passes, can be just some underwritten by other funding mechanisms. On the door-to-door service, often it's a very modest fee or maybe waived for certain people. Similar to current Council on Aging. We've heard from Council on people vis-a-vis Council on Aging, which is an existing service that it's not available to everybody, right? And you have to meet certain qualifications. And as far as the MBTA ride service, some people have said, well, we can't use it for doctor's appointments because they give us a 4-hour window. They'll throw up sometime in the 4-hour window or something. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, so Acton has a service. I think it's kind of gone up and down over the past couple of years, but they do have a service that has free rides between a number of important stops in Acton. Bedford has a transit service. Lexington has 4 fixed routes with passes or $2 for 6 to 64, 1 for seniors and children under 5 free. There are regional transit authorities with kind of formal service that are just coming sort of within shouting distance of Concord, like the Lowell one. There are independent companies that provide ride services for certain communities, and Plymouth is another historic town in Concord in Massachusetts, and Boston, and this company Circuit that can also provide electric vehicles. There is the Acton service is part of a crosstown connector run by something. We have to learn more about this. There's a lot of discovery to do. And it's something that, the more support we get that this is a good idea to, the more we can figure out who among staff, consultant or TAC can put together pieces of a picture and options. But there is this Crosstown Connect entity as a public-private partnership And, Acton and, Littleton and Maynard are founding members. Carlisle and Westford are listed as members joining later. Concord and Sudbury, it's a question mark. I think they may just have some interaction with Council on Aging or visits to the hospital, but the emblem of Concord shows up on the website, but I don't really think we're a member. I'm not sure. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so good time. Thanks, man. So we wanna start the conversation, learn and try to work out how to do some economic analysis and implement something. Thank you.
How can we be helpful?
Well, the first thing is if people have comments about what they don't like in the document, what they think is missing. These are, I don't know if the word living document is the right word, but nothing's perfect. We're just trying to put something out there to fulfill our charge. And it overlaps with a lot of things. Mimi has presented to TAC about the age group in Concord, and there's a lot of overlap with that. And so we're going to different members of TAC are going to different committees, just to kind of make them aware of what we're talking about. There's another piece of this too, which people should be aware of. I think communication, spreading the word out to different people who might be able to contribute or critique or suggest other options and connections for us, say regionally, whatever is important. But there's also some, in addition to focusing the remaining $70,000 on some deliverables like support for the road maintenance moves at town meeting, there's another $50,000 that's been ARPA funds that select board has said could be used to get Stantec in their sort of engineering function to interact with MassDOT in terms of the rotary route to so a lot of these things are like, it's not gonna happen tomorrow, but if people are not aware, how can they, collaborate, give input? So I'd be very interested either here or by email or talking personally to hear what businesses think about this.
Or will you send us slides to?
So I can include them.
Yeah, okay, great.
I have one comment that might be helpful is the town currently is without a transportation planner. Since Eric Stevens left, so to me, that left sort of a gaping hole. I picked up the bike share and the transportation for the 250. But I'm not an expert at transportation. I serve a very distinct audience of visitors coming in, so I think in terms of what we can do, supporting having a full-time transportation planner. Would be something, and also, as part of that, to link to some of those grants that we've applied for and were not successful for, because I think there's lessons to be learned. So I've applied, we have the circuit car, we applied for a transit grant for that we did not get from MassDOT. I think all of those combined give us information on what we can do to keep trying for funding. So we did get feedback from MassDOT on that particular application because it was a $2 million application. The feedback was they were looking for a regional partnership to fund, which was interesting because it was not part of the grant. The kind of what they're looking for, it wasn't part of that, but I think that's interesting to have as part of this background because it helps understand what we've applied for, what we're, what has been looked at for funding and why we're continuing to come up short for funding.
With regard to the planner, Lydia Hughes told me yesterday, I asked how progress was going. There is a rec out, but it's being very hard to find. So, but yes, that's again.
One little bit of feedback too is, you didn't get to, I know you had a lot to cover about complete streets. And that's, complete streets is basically saying, having like a town policy that when you're improving the streets, you're thinking about multimodal transportation. So it's kind of baked into it. So that you are also improving the sidewalks, you're making sure there's bike connections, and you're really thinking about the whole experience moving through that. And I think that would be really helpful, because I feel like all of the things around parking and public transit is really key on people being able to, once they're in a place to be able to walk around it. And so, I secured a grant from the town to be able to place benches, and ideally want to put benches where people are walking. And as I'm looking where those are gonna be, it's like, people can't safely walk in those through the count. There's, all kinds of ramps, there's steps, there's not a side, the sidewalk stops in the middle of the pathway. So, including that as part of the planning and prioritizing pedestrians, at least within distinct areas. And we would advocate for retail business areas.
I especially would like to hear, as people think about this, business owners, what is your input to this? As we have, it's very hard to get scientific balanced input from everybody.
Yeah.
So we hear some things, but I'd like to hear more.
Other comments?
I think, I would, in terms of economic vitality in the business, kind of in both business sectors, getting employees low wage, I mean, there are workers from, we don't have them in truck Concord, we've got to get them in. And in terms of a lot of these transportation issues, having that in mind, how do people get here from Lowell and Lawrence and wherever they're coming from, is quite important. I think it used to, a few years ago, I sat in a group of businessmen, and that the store owners, that was a major concern. I don't know whether it still is, but getting employees was a huge
Well,
problem.
that's the issue that's on my mind, and it's complicated, and I've forgotten it now, what the details are, but because we have MBTA, rapid transit, we don't have bus service.
Right.
And so therefore, there's no bus from Waltham, there's no bus from Lowell. And I don't know, I mean, there's some rule, I'm sure, about that, but to me, that's what is missing from your list of things. What I've heard from the business community is, how do we get workers into town?
Okay. And very, very important, in that would be to hear from businesses, the hours, the timing, et cetera, because some of these bus services, I see, it starts at 8 AM, well, that's
too late.
That's too late, and it stops at 5 PM, and it's like, that's too early. So this, getting some data on what kind of timing of service and from where to where, there's no bad ideas, put all the ideas on.
Let me just offer something quickly. We're in the process of pulling together a survey for business owners, and we can make that a data point on it and ask them if.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
That was gonna be my comment.
Survey, really, really.
Yeah, where do you work on, how they need to come and.
Mark?
Hey, Mark, quick question. Given the opportunity at MCI, I wasn't, as speaking in my own sort of resident capacity, I wasn't terribly thrilled with DOT's corridor study and what they're recommending for some sort of future upgrade is to the rotary. I think more attention needs to be paid to that. And I think that as part and parcel of redevelopment of the MCI property, it would be wonderful for the state to focus on a solution for that rotary, not only so it can accommodate more people in a more efficient way, but it'll be safer. So I would have thought that having some sort of flyover or some sort of solution for the Richard Rotary would be the number one recommendation, or one of the top 3 or 4, particularly given where we are with the MCI opportunity. So I just wanted to get your opinion on what you thought of the corridor study and what's your takeaway and what's the next step.
Thanks for asking that question. So, relevant to that, there are 2 things I want to point out. One is that, on the TAC webpage, there's a link to a comment document that the TAC put together specifically responding to that study. And, we have some general recommendations. One of them is, whatever a MassDOT does, it should enhance and not detract from the connectivity between the 2 halves of the town. We had some comments on specific design proposals in the second section that we didn't think were very good. But the third section is very important. It lists things that were critical that were not in the study. One of them is mode shift, about You know, we have the Fitchburg line running in parallel with Route 2 pretty much. And why isn't the state agencies like they're mandated to do, collaborate together and utilize all transportation options instead of just putting it on in terms of automobiles on roadways? And another one is specifically about the fact that that study was, I think it may have been released in a hurry because it specifically doesn't include the Rotary in any significant way. So the second thing I wanted to say, so please look at that document on the TAC webpage, the comments back to MassDOT. The other thing I want to mention again, repeat, maybe I didn't make it very clear, but $50,000 has been designated for the town public works and engineering to contract a Stantec engineering group to kind of work specifically in responding to MassDOT on that study. And then, of course, since the Rotary was left out of the study, and the Rotary and the MCI is a big thing, that's I've heard some people say 50,000 is not enough. We need to find more. I'm not sure what you could do with that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'd love to hear other comments.
Comments or questions? What I'd like to see us do, and I think the best thing we could do for your committee, Mark, is if we could get back to you with, here's what the business community thinks are the most important recommendations.
That'd be great.
We're gonna be later in our meeting taking up a survey that Tiffany and Ross have put together, going out to the business community, and I think that she's already indicated we can think about amending that survey to make sure there's a transparency.
That would be really great.
The other thing I would say to you, just as a guy who's been on a few committees,
Mhm.
is that your list is too long. You're very sucker.
Yeah.
I mean, in particular, you know, I've heard too, there's likely to be a warrant article for some debt to deal with the roads, so get that, you know, don't spend your committee's time worrying about that and see if there's some other things you can get off of there.
Mhm.
Focus on 2 or 3 items
Mhm.
that would make a difference from your committee's point of view, but allow you to get real focus. So, because you know, when you go to a town meeting with anything, if you're focused like a laser, you've got a, you know, a better chance of getting something through as
Absolutely.
opposed to, oh, macro.
Right.
You've got, you know, 6,000 things to worry about.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Mark, thanks a lot.
I'm probably,
Questions? Yeah.
Yes. You're new, tell us who you are, why are you here?
I'm here. My name is Chris LaFrance. I moved to Concord with my family about 2.5 years ago. And been interested in kind of community advocacy. I studied political science as an undergrad years and years ago, so kind of circling back to my roots, I guess. I work in commercial real estate, and so, you know, willing to hopefully lend some perspective from that world.
Right. Well, we're glad you're here. I don't know, was Katie Katie, were you at the last meeting?
Hi there. No, unfortunately I wasn't. Hi to those of you that I don't know. My name is Katie Morris. I'm the Director of Marketing, Communications, and Media Relations here at the Concord Museum. So I'm not a resident, but am definitely plugged into the nonprofit, cultural, economic sector here in Concord. So I'm really excited to be here and learn more and to offer any help that I can.
Right, thank you very much, and also I would note that Steve and Jan have both joined us, so welcome folks. Glad you're here.
Could we take a quick seconds just so that Katie and Chris get to know who all of us are, since they might not have met everybody?
Sure, why don't we start with you?
I'm Mimi Grady, I'm the Economic Vitality Manager.
Beth Williams, tourism manager.
Tiffany,
Tiffany Upchinsky, and member of the Economic Vitality.
Greg Higgins.
Mike Lawson on the chair, Steve?
Yeah, Steve Verrill Farm.
Jan? Mark?
Hello, Mark Martinez.
All right, did we get everybody? And we have two guests, Linda Miller and Mary Hartman. Mary's our liaison from the select board. And Linda's the liaison from Public Works. So welcome, folks.
Meet everyone.
Hmm?
Nice to meet everyone.
Great. All right, you're up next, Beth. Let's, for Beth and Mimi, do it as short as you can.
You got
so
it.
Got enough time to worry about the, survey.
I will combine quickly both updates on tourism from the non-250 component. We have seen some nice press come through that are not related to the 250. Last week we had, National Geographic UK, commissioned by the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism to write a 36-page article on Massachusetts tourism that will run in the January National Geographic. And tomorrow we are hosting a German press tour, also commissioned by Mass Office of Travel and Tourism, with a slightly more condensed focus. Not a 36-page document that they're creating. So, both of these press are here like 2-3 weeks, some of them covering as much of Massachusetts as possible. Obviously, they're international press, which has been really exciting to have. Our visitation from the summer, pretty close to double, any past year, both in revenue and attendance. And for the 250, we are grateful to have received $25,000 grant from Mass Office of Travel and Tourism for the 250, which is going to fund an expansion of our Patriots of Color program. That's being spearheaded by Joe Colombo. So there will be a series of events. There is going to be a video created that will have an evergreen component. And we will expand the offerings of the Patriots of Color walking tour that we have started just out of general operations. So we're really excited to get some funding for that. Last Tuesday, the State House had a big launch of their MA250. They were all wearing tri-corner hats, even though it was 95 degrees out. I helped the governor's office find the vendor for the hat, so that was a lot of fun and a lot of Concord representation. So that's been out on social media, and they announced the grant and moving forward for the 250.
Yeah, it was a nice event. The governor's there and Lieutenant Governor and the mayor and
It's great.
Miss Fox from Mott was there. Quite a nice friend, Paul Revere rode up on his horse.
And the governor rode out on her horse, so.
And then we had a state commission meeting following that, so that was
Perfect timing.
pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Mimi, you're up.
The farm study, I just have to incorporate some of the feedback that I got from the Ag Committee last week. And then I will be sharing it with this committee and other committees for their feedback in draft form. So that was basically looking at local farms as businesses and recognizing that Concord farms make up 10% of the land in Concord. So while they are small in one way, they are mighty in another in terms of dictating character and being a major player in the town. I am got some funding through the town manager for of ARPA funding for a food safety program. So I'll be working with the health department for kind of a two-part program. One is going to be training around food safety. So food manager and food server tip certification. So that's for serving alcohol, choke safety, allergen. So that is going to be focusing on, that's open to anybody in Concord, the restaurants, but also all of the folks that are gonna be serving food as part of the 250th and at the farm stands. And then there's gonna be 2 grant programs, one for the farm stands so that they can better comply with regulations. So they'll have commercial grade refrigerators for the meats and for the other products that they're doing. And then for all the mobile food vending that's gonna happen, they'll provide the kind of small equipment that they need, Cambros, tents, tables, hand washing stations that are specifically around food safety. So we're gonna be having a food meeting with all the food businesses to make sure they're on board, and then that'll be rolling out in the next couple months. And then the art installation should be happening in Monument Square this Friday. We had a little snafu with our iron pour. There was a bubble in the iron. So that hopefully, weather permitting, will be going out on Friday, and then our activation events, we've got 5 of those that will be starting on Saturday.
And since you mentioned agriculture, I would point out that Saturday, Steve hosted Stone Soup Kitchen his farm was a huge success. We had, representation from, very many, food suppliers in town. I don't know what the, body count was, Steve, but it looked like a pretty good sized crowd to me.
Yeah, there are about 170, I think.
Yeah, it was a really nice event and the weather was nice, so it was pretty good.
Looks like there might be two questions.
Mark and Jan, so let's go with Jan first. Hi, Jan.
I just wanted to apologize because my mute just for some reason wouldn't go off. So I'm really just catching up with when you wanted us to introduce ourselves. So I'm Jan Turnquist, Executive Director at Louise May Alcott's Orchard House here in Concord. And I wanted to just quickly mention too, that when you were back in the transportation discussion about employees coming from other areas, I won't go into it now, but I've had some elaborate things that I've had to do because when we've had educational programs, especially certain educational programs, we've had one person in particular was passionate about wanting to come. She lives in Lowell. She couldn't get any transportation and we did manage it, but it was a lot of work. And that resonated in that moment, not only for attendees like that, but also for potential employees as well, because there's some wonderful people we'd like to hire and then we can't because of transportation. So that's just a quick note on that and I will stop talking.
Thank you, Jan. Mark?
Hey, Mimi, I know that you, Steve, and I spoke about sort of some initial findings on the sewer capacity and sewer improvement fees. And I just want to see if we can tee up that conversation, maybe at our next meeting, but, my understanding of the takeaways there are that the philosophy, as it is sort of currently embodied in the policy, the commission policy is no new growth. Businesses have paid a hugely significant portion of sewer improvement fees over the last, 5 to 10 years. And the sewer improvements fee itself has tripled over that period of time. So that I think that this group, for me, it's one of my top 3 or 4 priorities to throw sewer capacity, sewer improvement fees, and finding new sewerage opportunities to expand our capacity so we can bring on businesses such as restaurants, has to be a focus of this, in my opinion, has to be a focus of our work going forward.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next is our updates and rather than the item that the order that is on the agenda, I'm going to turn directly to Tiffany
So,
and our questionnaire.
yeah, so hopefully you received an email copy, but anyone here wants a physical copy, I can give it to you, so just let me know if anyone needs it. If not, I have a stack here. What I'll draw your attention to is, Marie from Revolutionary Concord helped me, was incredibly instrumental in helping us out with this survey. Ross isn't here, he was of course as well. And so what you have in front of you is draft. But I wanted to draw your attention to a few specific questions as you form your feedback. Mainly because the comments that Mimi and a few others who reviewed it left for discussion just wouldn't print. So I wanted to make sure I flagged some of the questions and some of the specifications. So for question number 3, which is customer demographics, we did clean that up a little bit. At first, it was a very long list of things we were asking for people. But I think what is important to point out is Mimi clarified that we have a 70-30 mix, 70% residents, 30% visitors when it comes to winter. In terms of the customer shopping that happens in Concord, and then that flips in the summer where it's 70% tourists, 30% residents. So just something for us to note when we put this together. The third one, we had a question, the question under that, do you have a perfect customer fit? Within that, we plan on refining that question, if everyone's okay with it, to really get at what are the other businesses your customers frequent versus trying to ask our business owners to define their perfect customer. Instead, get an idea of where else are they shopping, and that might pull together that information. And then just a couple clarifications. When we look at
Can I
yeah.
interrupt you? one of the things that concerns me about questions like that.
Yeah.
Is there are some shop owners that are pretty savvy about their customer base. And there are others that aren't particularly savvy about it. So my concern would be, is there a question or is there a way to ask them to calibrate? So you can ask them, but I'd like to know how confident are you?
Okay, that's.
So, because when I've talked
Yeah,
to
that's-
some of the businesses, some of them are,
And some are using like actual metrics.
Some have
based
data.
software, some are.
Data collection
Yeah, that's,
tools.
yeah, that's a good question. What are you using? Yeah.
so that. And that would be my comment for a lot of questions where we wanna know, how knowledgeable all you
Yeah.
when you're answering this stuff.
I think that's a really good point, so I will clean that up.
The point that Beth made just now of like, are you using a data collection tool?
Yeah, I can wrote that down.
Yeah, really helpful, because if like they're collecting emails.
Yeah.
That could help for district marketing and so.
Yeah, I use Google Analytics on their website, do they
Yes.
use inventory tracking, do they use, I know Revolutionary Concord, she has her
She's
data
got
sheets like a
online,
million, she knows exactly what she did last year at this state and what the weather was,
Same with Grant, got
same, yeah.
detailed.
But I have a similar thing, I'm like, who else is actually really going in and getting it in real time even? And
But there's a cheese shop, for example,
Right.
use, and I don't, well.
Yeah.
And ask them if they'd share that data.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that would be nice to collect. And then just a couple more things I wanted to draw everyone's attention to, in section 4, which is kind of business environment. We do have a question that asks, what do you think are the main factors contributing to vacant storefronts in Concord? And I think a good point that Mimi made is, well, this information is valuable and we absolutely can collect it. Is it actionable for the committee, or does it throw us down a rabbit hole that might derail us from what our focus should be? Again, we can collect it and have it as a data point, which I think will be the main goal of this survey. And then we're collecting and we're being able to tell a more detailed story. But just something to note that in grabbing some of these data points, it might not actually be actionable here. And similarly, when we move through that section, there's a paragraph right above that asks, what are your concerns about the current commercial centers, retail mix? What are your customers asking for you that is not available? Do restaurants closing early impact your business? Again, they're data points. I don't know if they're actionable. So if we feel like questions like that are going to distract from the survey, by all means flag them and we'll take them out, or we'll table them and figure out another way to treat those. And similar with parking, that's been another question that I know has come up a lot at this committee. I know it comes up with the business owners, but again, is that something we are going to be able to tackle as a committee? Or is that again gonna throw us down this rabbit hole that
We
we're
are, whether or not we directly tackle it, I'd like to see something
Okay.
in there. Why? Because we can get the information to Public Works,
Okay.
and they're the ones dealing with that. When Mark came to talk to us, I don't know if you were here.
Yeah.
He came, to talk to us about parking, and that would be a way to provide the kind of information that he was looking for, so.
And I'll refrain that question. I'll go in and make sure that, maybe instead of it being a question just about parking, it's a larger umbrella question that tackles transportation, and parking can be included in
In
it.
that,
So
yeah.
that we can get some of the
And
information.
you might just get Mark, do you know Mark?
I don't think so.
I'll send you his contact, but you might, shoot him a note and see if there's a question
Mhm.
that he's got
Okay,
on his mind, or his committee's got on their mind that they might like
yeah.
phraseology about, other than, what do you think about parking?
It might be helpful to ask specifically, like, where do your employees park?
I was just gonna say, I think this is missing a distinction between employees and shoppers, because I know I see the same exact cars every single day in the guys in the parking lot.
Sure.
And that's staff parking, so if staff are taking up commercial parking spots, with the offsite transport, if we had public transportation that ran an employee shuttle from somewhere further off, would that alleviate some of the downtown
Yeah.
congestion?
Yeah, so I think the main takeaway that I'll land on is, again, the survey is meant to be a way to continue to collect information from our business community so we can pull together more defined profiles, have an understanding of what the larger narrative is that is driving business in Concord that can plug into some of these other committees that are also looking at various angles that we are at, sometimes from a different perspective, but that we can have that overlap.
Did you get the typo in number 9?
No.
I think you mean ideal companion. Instead of ideal complexion.
So just, you know, do you have other thoughts, if you have concerns, and then the next steps in this, once we have this ready to go, will be what, you know, the strategy for distribution and goals around engagement, to make sure people fill it out. I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty manual process with, me and others, volunteers acting as canvassers. But I think worthwhile, because in doing that, it's also a promotion for the Economic Vitality Committee. We get to get our name out there. We get to let these business owners know, if they don't know who we are, what we're trying to accomplish, that we're.
But I asked what we're thinking about in terms of, not the questionnaire itself, but when the questionnaires come back, are we gonna know who filled them out? Are they anonymous?
I think we probably want to make them anonymous and give an option for folks to fill out more detailed information if they can. And another note I almost forgot to say is Ross, who's partnered with me on this, is we're going to use the tool SurveyMonkey.
Yeah.
To implement this as well, so we'll have all this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to hire turn rates.
Yes, exactly.
Well, going back to my question, anonymous is fine, we don't have to have grade, you know, written on.
No,
But
I think
But I
people
would
prefer.
like us to have some differentiators. Is it an owner?
Okay,
Oh, it's
Manager?
yeah,
a couple of
Is
mandatory.
it a West Concord? Is it
Yeah.
Where-
downtown Concord? So I
Is it
think
a-
we should think about some,
Non-brick and mortar.
It is some kind of anonymizing code we can use to get the general sense of where they're coming from,
okay,
you know, who's filling out.
yeah. So I think we'll find when we've done other surveys, you get different answers from business owners.
Yeah.
Than you do from business managers. And you get different answers in West Concord than you get in here and 9 Acre Corner and Depot, you get, and I think being able to organize the responses that would give us better insight, so we need to think about that.
You might put it on an iPad when you walk around.
okay,
I'm thinking like,
yeah, no, I think that's.
there are some business events that are coming up,
Yeah.
like West Concord has Discover West Concord Day.
Okay,
You might, especially because it's
just kind of stand
it's
out.
not super onerous, like, I mean,
No.
10 questions that somebody might be willing to talk to you during, you know, when they're all open, a porch fest, a sidewalk sale,
Yeah,
when you might get owners
Right.
present too.
I appreciate that, but when you're doing surveys, you have to be careful that you're not influencing the answers. So my suspicion would be, if I nailed somebody on the street and they were willing to do it, I might get more or less, I don't know, what it would be, more or less detail and more or less complete answers. Are they gonna know anything about data if if I run into Ben Elliott on the street, is Ben gonna remember whatever hard data he's got in his back office if I catch him on the street? So I think we ought to say it's gonna be an online survey.
okay.
Or, I don't care, or an in-person survey, and we're gonna hunt these guys down. You know. But
And there might be
Yeah.
opportunities to just have like a flyer that's like, we're doing a survey.
Yeah,
Feel free to fill it
right.
out, have
With
the
the QR code. and-
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
sure.
well, flyers, follow-up emails, that kind of stuff, and
Our next meeting is here for the room, it looks like.
I thought we had to do some tenant.
Mark has a question.
Yes,
Mark?
So I think it's really important to state confidentiality, just right up front so that people understand it. Particularly you start dealing with retailers who are concerned about competitors, competitive information, competitive edge. Secondly, I look at question number 4. One of the things we've been talking about for years is our town government as high as the select board, the town manager, the health board of health? Are you having issues with them? Are they supporting you? Do you know who they are? So I think that, at least from my perspective, it's almost, look, we're the EDC. This is what our mission is. How can we help you? And please reach out and tell us your failures, your successes. Number 4, if you talk to developers, they would say zoning and regulation is the biggest impediment in the reason for vacancies. So, depending on your audience, I think this needs sort of a governmental, is government supporting you? Do you know who they are? And what do you recommend we do to make it more synergistic to help you? I'm a little bit afraid of a survey that's just, we're getting data that's great, but what is our mission? I think our mission, at least Steve and I are thinking about how to ease regulation, is to understand what the problems are. And they're super confidential and they're super private. But the reality is, if we don't know what the challenges are, how's the planning board helping you? Is the planning director, is the planning department helping you? I'm not sure. For me, that would be more valuable than some of these sort of demographical data points.
But it goes back to the mission of this survey is about business recruitment. So it's helped to figuring out what are some of the specific businesses this committee is going to go out and reach out to. So they're trying, it's in some ways, it's almost like understanding a customer analysis.
Yeah. I think that's.
So that might be a good one for another survey, Mark.
And again, I don't know that we're gonna be hitting a ton of commercial developers with this survey. I think it's more truly like the.
People that are here now.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my comment would be, my footnote would be, are we putting the cart before the horse then? Because for me, if the government structure doesn't support an inflow of new business, it's great to understand what new businesses would like. But if it's not practical in our structure, I'm not sure.
It's a data point that we know, and it's information we can share with other committees and the select board if there's anything that comes back that is on fire.
You might be able to put a simple question mark that might help you. Something like, do you have a lot of interaction with the town government or something? Something like that might be interesting, rather than a series of questions about that, but it gives an idea how many of them actually interact with the government. That might be
Even if, do you know how to contact someone? Do you know how to do you know what resources are available to you?
Yeah.
Or even on a score, you just lay out as a score 1 to 10, how supported do you feel by, the departments or town in general?
I also think, much like when Mark was presenting, I made a comment in sort of Mike about employees. I think we should talk about customers, but also slash. If you don't have employees, some of these people are working very long hours. It's very difficult to sustain the business that way. And
Is employee retention and recruitment a problem? So
That's great.
right, something like that.
yeah. I think we need to be,
It seems like,
go ahead, Steve.
it seems like we do have some mixed message from different parts of the town. The limiting or preventing expansion and keeping it limited to the number that are there. And of course, we're supposed to be trying to bring more business in town, and those are opposing goals in many instances. And I think their billing formula for hookup fees is not the most equitable one that could be on. I think it's more of a penalty for new applicants than it should be, and discourages people coming in. And any survey we're doing doesn't deal with people didn't decide to come to town because it was too much of a problem?
Yeah, I don't really factor that into this. And I wonder how we would, like, do we have data of all, like, I mean, that could be a separate thing where you reach out to people who applied and then never went through.
I've got data related to the sewer improvement fee,
Oh, that's, I thought it was.
I think that was what Steve was talking about.
Oh, I couldn't quite make out anything, so.
I think that's a question for commercial landowners, landlords, and that sort of thing. More so, because they're the ones that would know how many people could, called them and said, yeah, I'm interested in your building, and then didn't follow through. Because people who didn't follow through have disappeared.
Yeah, I think this.
So I don't know if this survey works for them.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, I think it shows that we could maybe think about another survey.
Yeah, so if we wanna boil it
It's on
down to
some of
Well,
those.
and maybe based on once we've analyzed this data.
Right, and you can fine tune it for.
Yeah, here's the
Yeah.
second wave of
Also, I wanna be careful about, Mark's point is a good one, but I wanna be careful about the phraseology. I don't want the question to turn into a complaint.
Right,
I want to understand what's going on,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
So,
I think that's, yeah, you don't wanna.
Other comments or questions?
If there aren't, everyone can reach out to me, feel free, mull over it a little bit more. I'll create another version of it, send it out again, I'll send it to you.
This is a lot of work, it's great, I think it's
Yeah.
really gonna get us.
You and Mark, you and Ross can continue to work with Mimi
Yes,
on this, but don't send out
okay,
draft to the committee or we'll get in an open meeting.
okay, that sounds good, so I'll work with Mimi and then follow the same process we did.
One of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, was there any other updates from the other components you already did yours? Mark, Steve, you guys have a update? I don't think so, okay, and who's communication and marketing, I forgot.
That's Cato.
Cato's not here, so
Yeah.
we're not gonna hear from him.
Once we've got our website, we're resting on our laurels now.
All right, public comment, Mary, Linda? I guess that's no.
But it seemed Mark had something to say.
Mark, you're not.
I'm good, thank you. Good meeting.
Hey, Mike, I just had one question, and that is, again, I think sewer capacity for me is the number one or top three impediment to business development, or economic vitality going forward. I did attend the MCI sort of update, and I'm wondering, and I guess I'm recommending that this committee talk about writing to the select board as well as the town manager to make sure that we are urging them to fully review and to recommend moving forward on the proposal to purchase the MCI water treatment facility. Or if the analysis is clear that, it doesn't make sense, participate in that discussion. For me, it's a 20 to 30% capacity opportunity. I understand that the state has, between the DOT and the farm and the police want sort of a right to continue to use it, a lease back concept, if you will. But I do think it's a major issue, and based on what I heard from the MCI call, my sense was not that it wasn't, my sense was it wasn't a top priority to vet and move forward on. And it was great to have Alan at our last meeting. I'd love to sort of follow up on that.
Mary, do you have a comment?
I do, and I think Mark's right. I think the capacity of the wastewater is one of our top priorities. That is being driven mostly by Alan Cathcart and Weston and Sampson, who've been thinking about this for decades. So we're relying a lot on them. The select board is very aware of it. We're very aware of capacity as being a constraint to growth, both economically and residentially here in Concord. It's going to be driven by the select board in unison with the DPW, and the MCI advisory board will not. We would certainly welcome a letter. I mean, really, the more letters we have, that we will know that we're going in the right direction. I just want to assure you that it's being done at the right level. This is something we take very, very seriously, and we're working on it every week. So I wanted to reassure you.
So Mary, just a
Mark?
footnote, and then I know
Mark?
that when Alan was in, it was great to have Alan in, and it
Yep.
was great to have him sort of understand what we're doing, and I think it was a little bit of news to Alan, which is a little bit surprising, but I think it was good. And the only thing I would think about, recommend to you is that Alan and his team really work to understand what future opportunities there are to expand sewer capacity, and it's
Absolutely.
so far above me, but if there's open pieces of land, we need to do a full analysis.
Yes. Yes, 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 and yes. And
All right, hold on.
we are. So yes, you're absolutely.
Mark, why don't you, take the lead and drafting a letter? And send it to me and you and I can work on it, and then we'll send a copy to Mary so she can tell us whether it's helpful or not, and then we'll put it on our agenda for our October meeting, okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mike, you have October 24th, and that's a Thursday. Is it October 23rd for the next meeting?
I think it's whatever we say it is.
I'm just checking, because it's not a Wednesday.
I could have just.
Yeah, we have the room reserved for the Wednesday, the 23rd.
I have it on the 23rd, okay, so
Okay.
a correction on the agenda, it's the 23rd at 4:30 in the townhouse, and the room is already reserved, I think. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
Mark,
did I have a comment? Three quick things. One is with respect to employee transportation, if it fits in the survey to say what, what are the extent of hours that employees, the earliest, latest need to be there, because I think people probably don't have a concept of how early people need to get to some of these. The second would be, geographical area, what towns either they're coming from or you wish they could come from. Second, in terms of, familiarity with town staff support or whatever, that kind of scale of 0 to 5 or something like, who to go to, and are you getting the help you need or something, that could be just a first cut at that. And then one more thing, one of the largest employers, if not the largest employer in town, is Emerson Hospital, and I'm just wondering whether, in terms of economic vitality, people visiting for doctor's visits or the employees, and also for transportation, maybe piggybacking on their needs, whether there's any effort on the part of this committee or any other one to coordinate with that employer.
good point. Yeah, good point. Don't exactly know. I don't think we
It's a
have.
big question mark.
Yeah.
It's.
Why don't I reach out to Emerson Hospital and see what I can learn about that, see if I can gather some information.
Yeah, if there's anything transportation wise they want, link maybe.
Yeah, they're big enough though that they
They do their own thing, but.
they may have their own thing. They're also, I think there's a restaurant, I'll talk to you offline, I think there's a restaurant in town here that provides transportation for its employees too. So,
There was a study that was done of the crossings there at Old Road, 9 Corner and the crossing, and there were a lot of concerns by people about the crossing. So I think the synergy, there might be a synergy.
great. Again, just to make sure, Linda, no comment, Mary, no additional comments? Okay. Next meeting is October 23rd at 4:30 in the townhouse. A meeting, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Thank you all very much for coming. It's great to see you.